Welcome to my favorite lecture at Essex County College, and today I invited Professor Shawn Smith to come and talk with us because I thought it'd be nice for us to talk about something that we both teach, which is the movie Psycho.
My favorite.
Yeah, it's one of both of our favorites, so it's a great movie to talk about. And we both teach our Intro to Film class, Intro to the Art of Film, Cinema 101. So it's a staple. It's one of the films that we all teach this course. And I just thought it'd be interesting to talk about why it's such an important film that we're still teaching it even though it's from 1960.
Definitely. But that's because in these days, people forget the oldies are the goodies.
Yes. And black and white is nothing to be scared of.
It's not.
Yeah.
Unless you see some of these newer films on Netflix.
Well, that's different. Black and white on real film versus digital, digitized black and white after the fact is a very different cause.
Yes.
So, of course, you start off talking about Psycho, you start off talking about the fact that it was directed by Alfred Hitchcock. So, one of the most prolific directors of Hollywood fame.
The father of suspense. The father of everything, mystery, mind-boggling, twist, everything. And
brought it to television after. Mm-hmm. So after having huge hits with films like Spellbound and Notorious, by the 60s, he's already making Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Yes.
Which are like 1-hour mystery shows. And they're like little movies the way he makes them. So the story goes that when he found the book Psycho, which is by Robert Bloch, mm-hmm. He wanted to make the film version, and the studio was not so hyped about it. Universal was just kind of like, I don't think this is really worth it. So he decides, well, fine, I will save you money on it, and I will use the crew I already have for my television show as opposed to a full movie production studio, and we'll do it in black and white. We'll save money that way too. So it's 1960. There was no reason to, they had to film in black and white by then. I mean, color comes, the two of the biggest color films are Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind. So color had been around. Psycho, it was a choice to go with black and white.
And the thing about color is we get so caught into color as to if it's the norm, but all those years up until like Gone with the Wind or Wizard of Oz, all people saw was black and white. All your Hollywood classics are black and white. Yeah. So it's like, and then what's even more interesting is, and something I say to my students all the time, I said, you guys look at a lot of these music videos that you guys love so much, like Madonna and all those people. I said they stole from the idea of black and white when they did their videos because it was such a beautiful format. Mm.
And they're even like stealing a lot of the cinematic style in general from the films of that time period for at least at the height of music videos in like the 80s and the 90s. It's definitely true. But so Psycho is a choice to be done in black and white, and it's a money-saving choice, but it becomes almost a stylistic choice as well. And I think there's a lot of things he can get away with in Psycho because it's black and white.
Definitely.
It's a bit gruesome for the period.
It's gruesome for the period, but at the same time too, it's not overly gruesome as which we are used to today, because today we're just used to seeing everything on the screen.
It's no Saw.
There's no Saw. I'll just start off with something that I recently had with a recent discussion I had with some students in my class. It was in my script writing class. And so I was talking to them about putting red herrings in their film so that, people like really follow and really get interested in it. So I actually happened to show them a clip from The Graduate with Mrs. Robinson seducing Dustin Hoffman.
Great framing.
So they look at that, and the thing is, so here's this woman in her slip, and even though they did do like this shot of her nudity, it wasn't like full nudity like we have today.
Right.
So the students are like, so why is this R-rated? This is nothing. I'm like, well, for the time, that was a whole lot. I said, look at the two things. I said, you have a woman who's married, who's seducing a kid out of college, which we call cougars today.
Right.
Right? I said,
Mrs. Robinson's the original cougar.
Okay, so that's totally. Number one. I said, number two is, I said, do you realize those body shots and a woman in her slip and how risque it was. That was not any. I said, you guys are used to OnlyFans where you just see everything.
It's all hanging out.
I said, this is risque for the time.
Totally.
I said, most people today don't wear underwear, so you guys don't understand that a slip was risque at the time. And they were like, oh. And then when they looked at the ending, where she runs away with him, they get like, oh my God, like, oh, that's so cool. And then I showed them the TV show A Different World, where the Different World that same ending where Whitley runs away with Dwayne. And I'm like, so the point is, guys, all of these films and stuff that you guys are looking at steal from original ideas. Yep. I said, so when we go back to Psycho, it's the original idea of horror, suspense, twist endings that you guys think is just normal today.
And speaking of risque for the day, so Psycho 1960, the cover art is Janet Leigh in just a bra and slip. The story starts with them having an affair in the middle of the day before she goes back to work. He's not a married man, she's single. He's a recently divorced man. But still, this is extremely scandalous, because the thing about 1960, a film made in 1960 was really made in the 50s. So you have to remember, this is 1950s sensibility, and this is a total crazy thing to start your movie with at the time.
And nothing against Catholics, but the motion picture board was all Catholic at that time, So there was no adultery, no sex before marriage, no seeing a married man. It's crazy, because every time I look at Psycho, I think of a family member that I have that was seeing a married man for so long. And it's like, the crazy thing is, my grandmother would never let that man come to her house because she kept telling my family member, I don't care if he's divorced, I don't care if he's in the middle of the divorce, he's not married to you, you should not be with him. Every time I see Psycho, that's the only words I keep hearing. I just keep hearing my grandmother's words. You should not be with him, he's not fully free, you're not free to be with him.
And that they even had that discussion about what's proper and what's not proper about their relationship, and how she wants a real normal relationship, and he doesn't feel like it's going to be a normal relationship till he's paid all his debt from his divorce, and his divorce is finalized. The whole conversation of can mother's picture be on the mantle, and do I have to turn around mother's picture when you come to visit, right? So there's a lot of things that are playing with these kind of ideals of society in the 50s, and it's we're starting off in a strange place. And then it's a film that she does something very wrong, and it's not the adultery of the scene. She pulls off a crime, and this is our protagonist. This is the woman that we're supposed to be identifying with. So we know that she's having affairs on her lunch breaks, and she just stole money from her boss, and he's taking a lot of chances with us wanting to follow the story and find out what is going to happen to Marion. So there's a lot of things story-wise that I think are really
so many things story-wise. Speaking of red herrings, I was telling my students, all along when you look at Anthony Perkins, Alfred Hitchcock was already setting you up to understand who he was. I said, because when you go inside his room and you see all those stuffed animals, you don't think anything about it, but it's like, okay, Alfred's already telling you a story.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't like a red herring right there misleading you into believing something, then that's like the biggest one that everybody overlooked. That's it, because I said, I can tell you when I first looked at that film in high school, I was like, oh, because I wasn't really studying it. But when I got to college and I studied it again, then I picked up on, I'm like, oh my God, he's really, because in high school you look at it because the teacher's like, okay, this is film appreciation, watch it.
right.
Okay, we watched it, what we got to do? Write an essay. All right, he was a very bad man, he was a killer. All right, end of the story.
Right, next.
And in the meantime, because we're talking about going to school in the 80s and we had so much embezzlement, that her stealing the money didn't really bother us as a class. Like, oh yeah, well she stole some money, so what? Yeah, all right.
That's why I say you have to think about it in 1950s sensibility, because By the 80s and the 90s, you know, did anybody really, I don't know if anybody really cared about that
No,
being like a big crime.
It was already something. Look, by that time we already had Watergate. So what could be more, you know, more corrupt than the government actually stealing? So it's like, okay, so this woman's told the government does it all the time. It's called taxes.
She's just liberating it.
Exactly.
You know? But it is important, like all these subtle cues. I mean, I love some of the shots when you first are seeing Norman because of the shadows and how the shadows can be like they change subtly to at first you're just to think he's just a normal guy, but the way the shadows change when people aren't there with him, giving you that kind of like okay, something
feeling, like
there's something else
really deeply going on here. You know what's interesting? There's a book out on like a whole book on like Psycho. And what's interesting about Anthony Perkins is that, which I loved, is the fact that you never really think about it off the top, but he was cast because he had like that androgynous kind of look where he was like a mama's boy, but he wasn't like a tough guy. Right. So you couldn't like cast a Rock Hudson to be, the Anthony Perkins character, Norman Bates, because Rock Hudson would be too masculine as a Norman Bates.
You wouldn't want like a sex symbol in that role because, but at the same time, Janet Leigh she was. I mean, she was like Hollywood, coming up to be Hollywood royalty, where Perkins was more known for stage work at that time. So. And that's always like when you bring in a new entity into film, like kind of like an unknown, people are already kind of like, oh, that you can do things with that character. You can make him have many layers and be shady because we don't know what to expect of him as an actor. So that's always cool.
Because you can mold him, because nobody knows what to expect because he's not already, as I always say, pigeonholed. Yeah. Like a Rock Hudson's is pigeonholed. You want him to be that person. He's a lover boy. He's a playboy. He's a straight man playing a gay man who's actually really a gay man. But it's like, but just like we all found out he's gay too late. But it's like but he's had played all of these roles, so you expect him to be like that kind of leading man.
Right.
Anthony Perkins, you didn't. Anthony Perkins could easily just like Anthony Perkins is kind of like my other favorite movie that I hope we discuss one day, Usual Suspects.
Oh, that's a good one.
He's like my other favorite person because, oh my God, Kaiser Soze.
That's a great character.
Okay. The way Kaiser Soze is built.
Yeah.
All right. And Norman Bates has that same kind of Anthony Perkins kind of like, he's not what you're expecting, So the casting is so much in that film.
Definitely.
Casting is so much in that film.
And then even knowing that he wasn't somebody who was already kind of pigeonholed, but after Psycho, he became stereotyped.
Yes.
And it was very hard for him after people, after that film got as big as it did, for people to take him as a leading man, like for the idea of him not being
a psycho.
Exactly. Right. Like
he
was. After that, it was tough, which is why we have Psycho 2, 3, and 4, which he directed part 3, I believe. Yes. But none of those are really necessary.
They're not because, again, it falls into the same thing with Hollywood, where where we have these where we have the formula, oh my God, that was great, so let's make a 2 or 3 or 4. We just can it, but it's like, how many times can you make the same can of pigeon peas? All right, you open that one can, you made it for dinner, your husband loved it, it was great.
Right.
When you make the second can, Victoria, are you really cooking these peas again?
Well, I mean, of course, like we don't even come back to the idea of a sequel until the 80s because, I mean, for you guys who know the horror genre of film, you know that Psycho becomes kind of like the template for what comes next. And, by the time thrillers of the 70s lead to the slashers of the 80s, now there's an interest and a resurgence of, well, all of these movies are basically ripping off, is the theory, ripping off Psycho. So let's start making Psycho sequels. And, they're banking on it. Universal is saying, well, we want some of that money too. We'll make some of these. So, yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of ways we revisit this story over the years. There's sequels to the books that have nothing to do with the sequels to the movies. So, and then, of course, we have TV spin-offs and all of this because, you know, that's one of those things where it's that lightning in a bottle movie that like everybody wants to find a way to kind of get a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So, of course, we can't not talk about the shower scene.
Of course.
And like you said, there's all these great books about Psycho. There are great books just about the shower scene. There's documentaries just about the shower scene because it's just one of those most impactful scenes in like Hollywood history.
Definitely. So when you think about the shower scene, the one thing that I love about it is here you are violated in your most intimate, comfortable space.
Yep.
Okay. This is a place where, I mean, all of us, especially after we've been in COVID for 18 months, all right, and we've been sitting in the house with everybody else in the house, the bathroom has been our best space. Okay, it's like
privacy.
Exactly. Okay, so I can go in here, I can take a shower for 2 hours. No, the water's just running, but I just need this space. All right. So here,
We don't advise taking a 2-hour shower. It's not good for your.
It's not good for your skin.
It's not good for your skin or your water bill.
See, lucky guys like me, my water's already included. So it's like, I can run it for 5 hours. And I'm like, I flush the toilet 5 times just because I can. Right? Like, whenever I have to pay a water bill, oh my God, I can see myself just like, okay, well, how many people go before we flush now? Like, okay.
I miss my utilities being part of my rent. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like so easy. But going back to the shower scene, though, it's like, here's like the most comfortable space that you can go, you can sit, you can feel free, you can relax. And in her case, because she had already done something that was violating her confidence, she needed to clear her head.
Yeah.
What better thing? Okay, I've done this, I've figured this out, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to repent and change my mind to do what I really need to do.
Yep.
But first, let me clear my head. Let me cleanse myself, as we would say, of my sins.
She is cleansing her sins physically in that shower.
Okay. Cleanse myself of my sins.
And for that to be the place for like the most horrendous crime, the most, heinous act to be had upon her, like for her to die in that moment when you are most vulnerable. I remember years ago, like I was an undergrad, Whoopi Goldberg had a talk show. And one of her guests one night was Stephen King. And they talked about, well, what really does scare Stephen King, right? And he said, ever since I was a kid and I saw Psycho, I cannot take a shower with the curtain. I can't, he's like, I take baths, he can't have his back to the door in the shower. And so that's like, you think of one of the guys who can come up with the scariest scenarios in the world. This movie got into his brain in that way.
The man who gave us Cujo.
Right.
Right?
I don't know if Cujo's my go-to on Stephen King.
I'm just saying, I'm just saying.
The man that brought us The Stand and It and...
That's true, but it's like, but I'm saying, what could be scary that your animal keeps coming back to life? Like, okay, I buried Fido, and it's like, he's back,
Oh, you have Pet Cemetery in there, too, yeah.
Yeah, so,
So, I mean, it's definitely a scene in this movie that has had major repercussions over the years.
It might answer why I shower with the bathroom door open. And I have a clear shower curtain.
How about when you go to the bathroom at night, you have to check the shower sometimes and make sure there's nothing in there.
Ergo, why I have a clear shower curtain.
Yes.
As I enter the bathroom, I can see everything behind the shower curtain because it's a clear shower curtain. My friends are like, why do you have a clear shower? I don't know, but that's what I like. Okay, exactly.
It's in your brain somewhere. But I mean, it's the breaking that scene down has been like, people have done this for years, but the whole idea of it, I think, maybe this is a dated conversation to say, but I think, that shower scene leads to what becomes like the fast-paced cutting of MTV era.
It does, because always keep in mind, because remember, Alfred Hitchcock, even though many people don't think about it, he was using those Dutch angles before it became like the MTV full style.
Yep.
But that's what he was using. That's how you got that idea of, this body, this person, this killer, You needed that, okay, because that's what gives you the rush. If he just stood there and he just like slowly.
Right.
He sliced her like, like, what's the guy's name from California? The Night Stalker.
Oh, Ramirez, right?
Yeah, he was doing like Ramirez, just, like decorating their bodies. So, like, come on, nobody's going to sit there, like, feel anything. But just the fact that, in the 60s, you're talking about people who are in that slow pace of life, just not rushing anywhere. So, gives them a rush. Like, oh my God, By the time you get to the 80s, all people want is a rush. But in the 60s, it's like, oh,
That had to scare the crap out of people. Because the other thing about it is it's all manipulation. Mm-hmm. You do not see a blade go into any flesh.
Never.
Nope. And the only blood you really see is in the drain.
Definitely.
So she's, it's using editing from supreme ways. It's concocting a scene to make you think you saw things you never saw. And I mean, horror films after this, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is famous for being a film that people think they saw all this horrific stuff happen, but actually it's just edited in a way to make you feel like you saw these things happen. So definitely taking from Hitchcock.
Definitely. And even though, today we have so many people hurling on the television, people are hurling in like every movie, they throw up, the hurl is like the biggest thing ever. All right, everybody thinks that I don't know why they think hurling is cute. Because
it's disgusting, and it's even more disgusting than a blade going through your skin.
Right. But the thing that always boggled my mind, and I actually learned this from you, Victoria, was the toilet scene flush, which was disgusting for that time. So
it was in the code. I'm not sure if we're still, this is post-Hays Code, so I'm not sure MPAA code at this time.
Yeah.
It was considered disgusting to have a flushing toilet, but because the scene where the toilet flushes is before she gets in the shower, she just rips up a piece of paper and doesn't know what to do with it, so she throws it in the toilet and flushes. That was the first time a toilet was allowed to flush on camera. So, yeah, that's a strange way to get around it.
It's just crazy that, people hurling is like the thing that's disgusting, that they just keep putting more and more of it in, and yet here was something just a simple toilet flush that by the standards of that time was unacceptable.
Right. It was uncouth, right?
Like, this is unacceptable. Like, well, who said that all these guys could hurl like every 10 minutes?
Yeah. I'm trying to think what other moments are important to discuss. I'm going to keep it fairly spoiler-free, that, if you haven't seen this film, which we are highly recommending you do, we don't want to tell you everything about it. But
another important thing is that I think is like really, really interesting is the when the sister goes to meet the boyfriend.
Yeah.
Because, he's very like, she came, she left, but the sister was very insistent on well, no, and then that moves him.
Yeah.
But if she didn't really speak up, because again, we're coming out of the 60s where a woman's voice is rarely heard.
Right.
If she didn't speak up, then they may have never found her.
That's true. And then, because Sam really has no reason to think that any of this has actually happened.
Yeah.
As far as Sam knows, I saw her, and that was a week ago, and I don't know, I hadn't heard from her since, right? So he really has no understanding of why she's so
amped up about it.
Right. And it is strange in 1960 for a woman to be the person pushing the story forward, the one who's progressing it. But at the same time, we have Arbogast.
Yes.
So we have the detective that's been sent by her employer to find out what happened to the money. And I will say that without totally spoiling everything, I will say that the money in this film is the largest red herring.
The largest.
Because it's really not, once we meet Norman, the money is inconsequential. It's not the problem.
The money becomes obsolete. Yep. Look, I feel about what happens with the money in Psycho is the same issue I have with Titanic and the lady at the beginning throwing the necklace in the Sweden.
Oh.
Just donate it to charity. You don't have to. Okay, I know you wanted to save Leo. I understand that. But if you really loved him, give it to somebody who's going to do something else with it. Don't let it go to waste.
If you really loved him, then you would have pulled him onto the raft. But
well, no, that's
there's
different because
so many issues with that story.
It's called Save Yourself, Victoria.
I get that,
okay,
but give him his own raft then. I don't know.
Well, she would have to like break up the sticks, and they didn't have time to rebuild. So that was just like one of those.
Titanic is a conversation for another day.
Titanic is a conversation that you're gonna all hate me because I still hate Titanic.
I do too. I saw it way too many times.
You all hate me on that conversation. I can tell you right now.
Yeah, so
Titanic is just like my.
So we can clearly say right now that Titanic is a film. If you take Cinema 101, you will not have to watch.
You definitely won't.
If you choose to write a paper about it on your own, know that we're not fans.
Well,
you're gonna have to be really convincing.
On your own, then guess what? Really convince me why I should put it back on the list of films we should watch.
Right.
That's what you need to do. And if you can do that, you'll probably get a really good grade. I can't say which grade, but you probably won't convince me, so I wouldn't even like it.
And I would feel the same way about Avatar. And
I
know I have had this conversation for years with students. I do not understand Avatar's appeal.
What Avatar is, all right, let's see, Victoria, that's why we get along. Okay, my thing with Avatar, and I've told my students this 1,000 times, look at the film canon from all the films that were made up until that point. And James Cameron has stole every line from those films. And I'm going to tell you guys, if you don't watch any other film before you watch Avatar, watch Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And then you will see the whole storyline incorporated into his film.
I will argue that Avatar is a retelling of Fiddler on the Roof.
That too. That's what I'm saying. It's just like, like I said, it's just like, There's so many things it's stolen. Yes.
Okay, so that's why we're talking about Psycho and not either of those films. And all of that, I will put a disclaimer. I am not anti-James Cameron. I still believe Terminator 2 is a perfect film.
I love Terminator 2.
Yeah, see, we can agree on some stuff, but we're not going to agree with you on Titanic if that's how you go. So anyway, all of that to say, yes. Hitchcock is not a perfect director. Not all of his films are the epics that we know and love. And Psycho is actually not even a good example of his work because it is not like most of his films.
It's not.
Like we said before, it's a paring down, it's a simplified version. But I highly recommend that it's a good entry point into Hitchcock.
And also, the irony is, even though I had a boss that used to love it so much, it's better than The Rope.
Rope is a good film, but it's a good film that because it has a good, I hate to say it, one of the things that makes it such a good film is it has a good gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
And the gimmick of Rope is that the entire thing is shot like a play.
Exactly.
And what was there, like 10 edits in the whole film? Not even, right?
I think it was only like 4 or 5. Yeah.
And he devised equipment that could follow going between rooms, and so there's a lot of it was highly organized process, and it's some of the best blocking ever done in film. And it's a really intriguing story on top of it. It's another great murder mystery. But I see Vertigo is my favorite though.
Vertigo is the one my mom made me watch.
I love Vertigo.
Because Mom felt that we were too young to handle Psycho.
I could understand that.
So Vertigo we watched, The Birds we watched.
The Birds,
okay, and because of The Birds is why I still hate pigeons, even though those were seagulls.
Yes.
But I still hate pigeons getting near me because I always feel I'm going to be Tippi Hedren.
Yes.
All right, like, get away from me, birds. I want to live my life, not the life you want to live for me.
The film I grew up with was Rear Window.
Okay.
Rear Window was like, for whatever reason, on cable, like every night when I was growing up. So we as a family watched Rear Window many, many times.
Okay.
But all of this to say, these are all great Hitchcock films that we recommend. I think we kind of covered some of the basics. There's a lot. I mean, we could go.
There's one more thing I'll throw in there.
Okay.
And I love it only because the sheriff's wife.
She's so good.
I love her because, and if you watch it for no other reason, watch it for this one line. When the sheriff's wife goes, so Norman's taking a wife?
No, wait. My other favorite line by her is when they have to meet them at church to find if there's any update, if they were able to get out and talk to Norman at the Bates Motel. And, you know, the chief's trying to tell them, you know, you have to do this the right way. We just have to fill out paperwork. It's got to be, it's a missing persons. Let the police take over from here. And the wife says, oh, we'll come down on Sunday, come over at dinner time, fill out your paperwork, and we'll have a nice supper. Like, I love that moment that she's just like, she's trying to hook them up, which is a little strange.
Yeah, but that was a good thing of the 50s, all right? We didn't have time to worry about, we don't have time to worry about that missing girl. She's run off with somebody's husband.
We'll have supper.
Like, the police will handle that. Let's just come over, have a good dinner, fill out the paperwork. And you two just get to know one another.
Right.
You know? Look, I just love it. You know, my sister who lives upstate says, oh my God, you wouldn't believe how many Yentas we have up here. So every time I look at her, I look at her, she's the original Yenta. You know, she just like before we had Barbara Streisand. Yeah. She just was bringing, you know, everybody together. You know, that's why she was like, well, how did Norman get a wife and I didn't hook him up? You know, like, when did that happen?
Or how did I not know?
Exactly, you know.
Okay, so I will throw out one more bit. Then I will also say that the Psycho is the reason why we have set times at the movies. And I only really understood this recently, is that movies, if you're playing a movie at a theater, it would just pretty much, okay, that's the movie in that theater. Because, you know, you'd have your twin theaters or your quad theaters, and each room would have a film that played pretty much all day. And you tried to walk in at the beginning. Hitchcock, because he didn't want people to know the ending, he was the first no spoilers guy. He said, we have to have set times. Do not let people into the theater after the first 5 minutes of the movie. And that's why... we have set times at theaters. And I will tell you another anecdote about a horror writer with this film. Clive Barker of Hellraiser, when he was a little kid, he went and saw Psycho in the theater, and then they hid in the seats so that they could watch it another time. But because they knew the ending, they turned around, him and his friend turned around and watched the crowd at the very end to see how they reacted to the twist.
Wow, that's amazing.
So Hitchcock has been influencing horror from far beyond the grave.
And folks, those of you who are film writers or screenwriters, those of you who are filmmakers, make sure you watch some Hitchcock films, because believe me, it's going to help you so much with learning camera angles, understanding the depth of being good at your screenwriting, understanding how to keep your audience interested. He's amazing at doing those things.
And meticulous design work. There are so many details that the more you watch this film, and as people who get to watch this film every year, you notice more and more things. You see all these great little details that are just giving you hints the whole time about what's really going on. And that's what we call, in film, we call that mise en scène. It's all of the detail within the frame that helps to tell the story. And there's a wonderful scene when you see Norman's bedroom. And it's a child's room. And it hasn't been changed in his whole life.
And if you ever watch it, also watch the names that are on the things that are in his room.
Yes.
Like, whoa, okay?
Yep.
Talk about risque.
Eroica.
Hey, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Talk about risque, you know. You guys think Madonna's risque. Look at Norman's room. Okay. Like, whoa.
But all of this, I think we can honestly say that if you come take Cinema 101 with one of us or with Professor Wager or any of the other people who teach that course, I think you will see and you will enjoy learning more about Psycho and learning more about why we watch films the way that we do. So. And
the main thing is, and that's why I love the book that we have, you're going to learn to look at films, not just watch films. And that's what happens, and that's why we love teaching the course, because it teaches all of you. Most of the students say to us at the end of the semester that we have ruined film watching for them.
I was going to say, I usually start with a disclaimer the first day of class. Okay, I may ruin movies for you, but in a good way, because you'll never be able to not think when you're watching a movie again.
I had a student come to me about a month ago. I just randomly walked into her on Market Street, and she was like, You know, I can't even sit in the theaters anymore because, you know, she just had going to the theater. She's like, because I'm sitting there and I'm analyzing the characters. I'm analyzing the scene. She says, you've ruined my life. She's like, and God knows my kids don't want to sit and watch movies with me anymore. She says, because I'm like, yeah, so you see that thing in Frozen? That's actually blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, I didn't take you to Frozen. I said, I just took you to, I said, I didn't even take you deep into anime. She's like, no, I'm just over it.
I end my class usually every year with anime, with Hayao Miyazaki's films.
Okay.
And I had a student one year go out and buy an entire Miyazaki box set.
Wow.
And make her children watch all the movies. And the kids were like, Mom. Because she was trying to explain to them there's deeper meaning through all these things. We have to notice all these details and understand what they're trying to tell us through these stories. So
exactly.
We'll ruin it, but for the better.
We'll ruin it, but you'll be educated. And like I tell all my students, when you finish movies, you won't be a movie watcher, you'll be a movie scholar.
Yep. So come be a movie scholar with us. You know, Essex has some really good courses for that. So thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us a little bit today and learning about one of our favorite lectures.
Thanks for the insights, Victoria.
Always.
You know, catch me when I'm around, because you know how hard it is to tie me down.
And maybe we'll do this again sometime and talk about another film we love.
We definitely got to do Usual Suspects.
Oh yeah, that's a great choice.
Yes,
all right.
Must do Usual Suspects. So look forward to Usual Suspects next year.
Next year, yes. All right.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks.